That brings a smile to your face, right? So when we think of joy, we most often believe that happiness and joy are the same thing. Often we interchange those two, believing that there's no difference. But joy and happiness are not the same, no matter how similar they are. They're both wonderful feelings to experience, yet they are very different. Adela Rogers says, "Joy seems to me a step beyond happiness. Happiness is a sort of atmosphere you can live in sometimes when you're lucky. Joy is a light that fills you with hope and faith and love." Now, joy is more consistent and is always cultivated internally. Joy comes when you make peace with who you are, why you are, and how you are. Whereas happiness tends to be externally triggered and is based on other people, things, places, thoughts, and events. Joy is far less transitory than happiness and is not tied to those external circumstances. Because most of us have lost touch with the experience of joy, we often tend to turn to quick fixes to find happiness. Quick fixes that all rely on something outside of self to feel. Sorry, it's not working this morning. Finding joy in your life is a personal journey and something that is cultivated on your own. It is not dependent on success or accolades earned, nor the accumulation of wealth, professional promotion, or how others treat you. These things, these experiences may provide temporary happiness, yet joy is eternal and is not dependent on the world outside of us. Now, one way to experience joy is to accept your higher calling. Now, I say accept rather than find, because in most cases we all know what our calling is. And if we say we don't, then we're either not listening or not paying attention or simply not accepting. Each of us has a passion for something, and this passion is our higher calling. And this is a path to embracing and actually remembering true joy. Now, often we will ignore this call. We ignore the call for many reasons. We're too tied up in the everyday. We're too focused on finding happiness. Or we expect happiness and joy to come to us. We tend to get in our own way, allowing fear to keep us from doing that which we know is our higher calling, because it may not be good enough or even important enough. Now, many of us block our joy because we are feeling inadequate or suffer from self-criticism or perfectionism. Now, I really like this. Jennifer Kronberg writes, "Being a perfectionist isn't about things being perfect. It's about thinking things need to be perfect and vigilantly pursuing it. Emotionally, this means that instead of living in a place of self-acceptance, perfectionists are on a continual treadmill chasing the elusive feeling of having everything in their lives be right." Now, happiness comes when everything is going right, if even for just a moment. Yet accepting and experiencing joy comes even in the midst of everything appearing to go wrong. Joy is not dependent on the circumstances of the outside world, and yet true joy will change how you respond to, how you view, and how we handle negative impulses. A joyful person will experience a bounty of happiness, for the external factors in one's life cannot help but match the internal sense of joy one has with life. A person who seeks happiness, on the other hand, may never truly remember joy. Their attention is always focused on external and material perfection. Thus, even moments of happiness may be fleeting. Joy comes to us in ordinary moments. We risk missing out on joy when we get too busy chasing down the extraordinary. Joy can be experienced in the smallest of acts, within the least significant aspects of our lives. When we let go of expectations, follow our internal guidance, the burdens of the world can be lifted from our shoulders. True joy can be experienced when we let go of our attachments. Now, I have talked about letting go of attachments on a spiritual level many times before, noting that we're not required to divest our lives of material possessions. Rather, we are called to release our emotional dependency and responses to these things. Rather than allow our happiness or sadness to be dictated by whether or not we possess the latest and greatest gadget, the newest cars and biggest houses, and instead of placing our expectations on happiness on how well our partner does or does not treat us, how strongly they show or don't show their love, or how nice a complete stranger is or is not, if we let go of our expectations of people and things, then we open our lives to the possibility of joy unlike any we have ever experienced. Joy is experienced in the moment. It is fed by the past and nourishes our future. Yet our joy need not be reliant on the past and cannot be forecasted into tomorrow. Embracing your divine self, accepting yourself for who you are, not who you were, and certainly not for who you will become, just accepting and loving yourself allows you to remember and live in complete joy within this most precious moment. Now, going back to embracing and hearing your calling, perhaps your calling is helping others, being of service to humanity, feeding the poor, caring for the sick. Perhaps your calling is being a homemaker, supporting and raising a family, teaching others to be respectful, loving, and kind. Neither calling is above the other. Each is equally important. Each is a gift to the world, and yet how often do we measure the acts of others or measure them against ourselves? Is the call that a writer feels any more important than the call of a painter? Is the work of an actor any more significant than that of a singer? So when I think about this, the way that I see it is if one pursues any of these in search of fame, fortune, and accolades, and if their happiness is dependent on the acceptance of others, then they may not in fact be heeding their higher calling. However, if a writer writes regardless of acceptance and fortune, or a painter paints regardless of sales, a singer records albums and an actor releases movies regardless of awards and reviews, then they truly know joy, for they are following their passions. They are listening to their higher calling. Each of us has a talent to give the world, something we are meant to do. Doing so may not always be easy. Doing so may not always bring us what we think it will. But if it truly is your calling, the satisfaction you receive will remind you of what true joy is. Now, it took me almost 40 years to hear the first whisper of my higher calling, and then even more years to fully understand what I was being called to do. It started off as a feeling. Events and thoughts started to lead me into new directions. I was definitely pulled outside of my comfort zone on more than one occasion, until I finally recognized what my gifts and talents were. Being of service both professionally and spiritually, and finding the avenues to serve led me in directions I never could have imagined on my own, and into a career that I honestly did not even know existed. Rabbeinu Tagore says this, and just take a moment and kind of listen to this for a second. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I woke and saw that life was service. I accepted, and behold, service was joy. That really resonates very strong with me because I think it speaks to that aspect of following your passions and your calling. And when you're doing what you're supposed to do, while it may feel like service, it may feel like work, it is the highest level of joy I think we can ever experience. So does doing what I'm passionate about mean that I don't experience difficult times? I honestly wish it did, but it doesn't. I still have bills to pay. I still live within this material world, and I must deal with outside influences. I'm not always happy. I'm not always confident. I admit that I also have moments of utter panic, confusion, and fear. Yet the more I accept myself, the more I continue to follow my passions and remember my higher calling, the more joy I experience. In the face of fear, I remember why I do what I do. When I celebrate the everyday, I can experience joy. Now, joy doesn't take away fear, yet it can dry the tears. Joy doesn't magically make the world a better place, but it does make living in the world easier. You'll notice that the poorest of the poor often experience joy, while the wealthiest often never know happiness. One lives in the moment, celebrates every moment of their lives. The other is always looking to the future, reaching for a finish line that continues to move further away due to our limited perceptions. One finds pleasure in the simplest of acts. The other seeks pleasure from others and adrenaline-filled adventures. Russell Nelson says, the joy we feel has little to do with the circumstances of our lives, and everything to do with the focus of our lives. So listen to your higher calling. Follow your passions, whatever they may be, and celebrate each moment. Live in joy, express joy, and celebrate life. Thank you.
Joy. So many different ways that we can look at joy. I'm going to start with a short story about joy. There was this woman who had a young daughter, and she wanted to teach her a moral lesson. So what she did is she gave the little girl a quarter and $1 when she went to church. And the mother told her, you put whatever one you want in that collection plate and keep the other one for yourself. Well, when they were coming out of church, the mother asked her daughter which amount she had given and which she had kept. And the little girl said, I was going to give the $1, but just before the collection, the man in the pulpit said we should be cheerful givers. And I just knew I'd be a lot more cheerful if I gave the quarter. Joy, 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 right? In order for us to fully grasp and to fully understand the meaning of giving, we first need that ability to receive and give whatever we have with joy. We're here to give. We're here to share our essence of who we truly are with the rest of humanity. And we're here to do that from a place of joy. And we do that by giving away words of love, by giving away words of gratitude, by acting with integrity and with honesty, going out of our way to help someone in need, and Nathan alluded to that, by giving to others whatever it is we have to give. And we all have something to give. The Buddha said this, you have no cause for anything but gratitude and joy. Couldn't we live our life like that? If we only have gratitude and joy, imagine what our life will look like. I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful thought. The purpose of our life is to be in joy, to have the willingness to be who we are, no matter how life looks out here. Remembering who we truly are. Because in every single human being on this planet, there is a space within filled with joy. It is God-given. And so we each and all have that joy. We experience the joy between the gap, between our thoughts. And guess what that is? Here we go back to present moment awareness. We always seem to go back to that, don't we? Staying aware of who we are. When we don't identify with our fleeting thoughts and our fleeting emotions and get stuck there, that's when we can live in that present moment openly. And within that present moment, we experience the lightness and the joy associated with our true selves, with our true essence. No one can bring me to a present moment like my 3-year-old grandson, right? Everything's new, everything's joyful. And you don't have an opportunity to get hung up on thoughts and emotions. You have to be right here and right now. So if you don't have a young one, I say go get one. It's worth it. They're beautiful little beings and great teachers. And I know those of you who have grandchildren know that, or young children. When we identify with our thoughts and our emotions, we lose that conscious contact with life in the moment. We're losing that conscious connection with our higher self. We just don't recognize it. And that's where our joy resides, in that conscious connection within our essence, our very being. Our intent and our awareness is the motivating purpose of our life. And I want to tell you what is already true for you. You are the source of your own joy. And I know Nathan was talking about that, and I am reiterating it, because you are the source of your own joy. You are the source of your own satisfaction. Only you have that power. We can't find it outside of ourselves. It's not where it is. When you allow that to be your truth, your awareness will provide a constant clarity on your journey in this lifetime, on the journey toward your passion, toward your joy. If you want to be in joy, become aware of that joy that already resides within you. It's already there. You can't go find it. One of the greatest joys that we have in life is giving. We all have an abundance to give. When you give your love or your joy or your positive attitude or your excitement, your gratitude, your passion, you are giving the true and eternal gifts of life. Those gifts that have been bestowed upon you. We're not supposed to hold on to them, right? We want to give them away. Those are the precious gifts given to you by the source of your life, the source of your very being. There is and can never be any greater gift than to give of what you have. Intentional spiritual community, as we have here, is a beautiful gift. That's a gift from Spirit. It's a way for us to learn to foster the greatest gifts of all, the love, the hope, the joy, the peace. Those are those qualities that we really emphasize this time of the year. although we emphasize them here all year long, right? At this time of year, it's really prominent. As a community, we spend a good amount of time together, quality time. In a sense, we're sharing our lives with each other. We're opening up. We support each other in our work and our struggles and our goals. And we do that on an individual and a collective basis. The time we share together gives us that opportunity to learn to love people up close and personal, without judgment. Allowing each and every person to be in joy, to celebrate their life. We learn to admit when we're wrong, to learn to speak up when we're hurt, to face conflicts, to work through them, and to do so together. We learn and we utilize the practice of deciding what is truly of value, what's truly important, and learning to let go of the rest of it. And it means giving our time, our talent, our treasure to what's most important to us personally, what brings us joy. That's what our whole life journey is about, learning to pay attention to what's most important from the perspective of our higher selves. In other words, our passion. And then to live accordingly. It's one thing to recognize our passion, right? And it's another thing to actually live that. Action is always necessary. Ancient texts say that heaven is within you. What they're talking about is the essence of your being, that vibration of pure love. To find heaven on earth, to live is to live your life in that same vibration as your true essence. Unconditional love and pure joy. Isn't that what we're aspiring to do? To live to our full potential? To help others and that around us be at their full potential, to support that? Being at your best will be your experience when you accept yourself for who you are in the present moment. Doesn't matter what you see as your strengths or what you might see as your weakness. What matters is that you appreciate yourself, that you appreciate where you are right now, and that you continue your path of conscious awareness. The idea is to experience joy in the process and to be uplifted by what you see, by how you behave in the world, by what you choose to do. This is not at all about fixing what's wrong, because guess what? There's nothing wrong with you. You are a perfect being. It's simply to enhance your awareness of who you are. And that's already true. You don't have to go find it. You simply need to accept and realize that you are a divine, eternal being. When we identify differently, we get all confused, right? We get hung up on those thoughts and those emotions, and we lose that present moment. You are created from the source of all being. I mean, how big is that? And what does that mean? That means that you embody, that you actually are all the qualities that exist in the One. You are already perfect, beautiful, powerful, creative, wise, and you have the ability to continue to grow and to expand in your awareness. And what do you need to do? Appreciate who you are. Appreciate what you're capable of doing. And you can move through any life situation that comes up with grace and from a state of joy. Even through this holiday season, when there's rush and there's hurry, and I don't know, some people have family dynamics this time of year. Go figure. Situations that need our attention always, always exist. However, problems are coming from our mind, right? From our mind, from our ego. And when our mind is full of problems, when we allow that to happen, we literally don't have any room for solutions to move in. So, what do? How do we transform those problems into a more joyful experience? Well, Napoleon Hill says this: every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. A benefit in a problem? Yes. And we all know that. From that perspective, our problems will appear as gifts. Sometimes we have to look for that seed that he's talking about. We have to search for it as if it's a hidden gift to be discovered. And it can be. If we see problems as opportunities, there is more room for joy. So, no problems, no gifts. It's a different way to look at it. So I'm going to leave you this morning with this invitation to be in touch with that part of you that is divine. To recognize and claim that power and then use it to bring more joy into this beautiful world. Thank you for being here while I shared this truth as I understand it.